Pacer Nation, what's going on? Welcome back to your go-to Pacers podcast. And guess what? The Indiana Pacers are back. They are back in the NBA postseason. The Pacers make the playoffs after taking down the Atlanta Hawks 157 to 115, a career night once again, matching their most points scored ever in franchise history, right?
Oh
Against the
yeah.
same team they already did it against earlier this season, the Atlanta Hawks. And here to talk to me about that is Michael J. Facci. Facci, how'd you enjoy the game today?
I had a time. What a life. We're back in the playoffs, and the Pacers never made you sweat for not even a second. I mean, they came out the gates hot. Sure, at one point, Atlanta did tie it up 62-62, but other than that, everything was just, it felt like a cakewalk. The Pacers came to play when it mattered most. They did exactly what we asked them to do, handle business. They never trailed, and we're back in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's really funny because when we were in the media room eating breakfast, lunch, whatever you want to call it at this point, it was around noon. I was sitting with Derek Kramer and Maddie Chandler, and I looked at Derek and Maddie and I said, I think the Pacers, they're either going to get down early and people are going to freak out, or what I really think is going to happen, they're going to get up like 17-4 on the Hawks, and then they're just going to kind of coast the rest of the way. It's so when the Hawks tied it up, Derek looked at me and goes, "Oh, you gonna tweet what else you said? You gonna tweet what else you said? Because I did tweet that I said that the game would start out like 17-4. I said they were gonna win with ease. Like you said, they never lost the lead. So it did get a little bit tight there in the second quarter, but really nothing to make you feel nervous about. The Pacers really didn't act nervous either. So clearly it was just a game that the Pacers dominated really from start to finish. Not the greatest defensive performance in the first half. Rick Carlisle was very disappointed with their effort, and they really turned things around in the second half. But you know what? Like you said, they got the job done. They avoid the play-in tournament, and now they are the sixth seed, Facci, and we know their opponent now finally. Who other than the Milwaukee Bucks?
The Milwaukee Bucks. We meet again. This is how rivalries come about because all the seeds were planted earlier in the season to say, hey, there's something going on between the Pacers and the Bucks. And Malik Beasley was like, I know we'll see them again in the playoffs. He was right. He's a prophet, I guess. But we're gonna meet the Bucks. The chance that we could play them, it sounds ridiculous. If this goes to 7 games, 13 times. Actually, it's
12.
12. It's
Yeah,
12.
to
All
say.
right. I'm not a mathematician, but 12 times
Ran out of fingers there.
essentially playing, I'm not a doctor, yep. Not to play a team 12 times in 1 year is just insane. But yeah, the tall task, can you beat the Bucks 8 times in 1 year? It ain't going to be easy, but I think that a lot of fans are going to have a lot of fun with this matchup. Even the casual NBA fan that doesn't watch the Pacers knows there's a little bit of beef here between these two teams, and I think it's going to make for an exciting series.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to have you guys covered for coverage
Oh yeah.
on the Bucks series. I will just say this, a lot of new wrinkles to be thrown into this rivalry. Pascal Siakam is now in the Indiana Pacers. Doc Rivers is now the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. They've also got Patrick Beverley, who is going to play a big part in this series as well. And what is the status of Giannis Antetokounmpo as he missed the last 3 games of the calf strain? We know that calf injuries can be very difficult to recover from. So how does it impact the Bucks, and does it make them a different team? What will they do? We're all going to find out. I think that the Bucks pretty much got shut down today by the
Yeah.
Orlando Magic. But I would just say this, Facci. I thought Caitlin Cooper brought up a really great point on Twitter. She said it looked like everybody was trying to avoid the 2 seed for a potential matchup with the Philadelphia 76ers. What are your
You
thoughts on
know, I got a lot of friends that are Knicks fans, and they said they did not want the 2 seed.
that?
It was very much, everybody kept saying, I would have much rather played the Pacers. And it's like, look, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that because it's not like we're just this, like, you're just going to step over us and move on. But Philly looks scary right now. Miami, the run that they made last year from play-in to NBA Finals, I get it. But at the same point, the Bucks shouldn't be excited to play the Pacers. We had their number more than anyone's had their number. But yeah, I was watching that Knicks game. Knicks Bulls very close. It was a very good game that went into overtime. And I started thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm rooting for the Knicks to win because I want to play the Bucks given, the choice of the Knicks or the Bucks. I just think that you're looking at a Bucks team you had success against. Giannis is hobbled. Who knows what his status will be in terms of if he's going to miss any time. It seems, if anything, he's not going to be 100%. But I agree with the point that you made. in other years you want the 2 seed. This year, I don't know if teams wanted it.
Yeah, it seemed like people were trying to play dodgeball, and like the Cavaliers didn't play anybody really today. They set out a
No.
lot of guys. It was like the Amani Bates show versus whoever was playing out there for Charlotte. And Charlotte, they're trying to lose games to get themselves a chance at a better draft pick. So, Cleveland, they're like, we're good with the 4 seed. Like, let's just hope Orlando wins. We can play Orlando in the first series. And I kept thinking to myself, man, JB Bickerstaff is a genius here, because if he were to go out in the first round, I think his
That's it.
job could be on the
Oh
line.
yeah,
But
100%.
I think they probably have a good chance of beating Orlando based on the other opponents they would have had to play.
I think
So
so.
if they beat Orlando in a 7-game series, they move on to play Boston, they lose to Boston. Like, that's just job security for JB Bickerstaff, right?
You could live with that loss.
Yeah. So it's like, to me, I think that made a lot of sense for the Cavaliers to kind of position themselves into the 4 seed, and Indiana getting the 6 seed. There was a chance they could have moved up to 5 if Orlando lost, but now they avoid Boston until the Eastern Conference Finals if they can get past Milwaukee and their round 2 opponent if they get there. Obviously, we're projecting a little bit here, but just saying, if you're looking down the road, the Boston Celtics won't come in your pathway until you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, if you get that far.
It's crazy how much things have changed because getting the 6 seed now, it just feels like unbelievable. You couldn't be more excited about it. Yeah, you mentioned we get to avoid Boston, but you feel halfway decent against your odds, against Milwaukee. And then, hey, if the Knicks do get the job done, you feel like, okay, is it a monumental task to take down the Knicks in the second round? No, I really don't think it is. And we'll see what happens, if the Knicks even get out of the first round. Because the way Philly's playing right now, I mean, that's a scary matchup. But I do think that things worked out well for the Pacers. Of course, there's the other part of me that's like, you know what? If the Pacers had beaten Cleveland the other night and then Orlando still loses this game, the Pacers could have jumped as high as 4. There's a lot of things like that, but I didn't want to play the Cavs in the first round. And I know it's not just based off of how last matchup went. I just feel that the Cavs bigs are just really, really talented. And then you obviously have Donovan Mitchell. I look at Milwaukee and I see a team that has a lot of pressure on them, a
Mhm.
lot of pressure. And the Pacers don't have that same type of pressure. And I think that one thing that was great, hearing the Hawks coach basically say is you can't simulate playing against the Pacers. You can't. Milwaukee can try and do whatever they want. And Doc Rivers, hey, he wasn't there like we already talked about before. The Pacers, when you saw them today, 157 points, you start to be like, okay, hey, if the Pacers can play their game of basketball, we might just be all right.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking here at Facci at the standings, and I think why the 3 versus 6 doesn't feel like that big of a difference, even though the Bucks, they win the division. They have Giannis Antetokounmpo on their roster. They have Damian Lillard on their roster. They only won 2 more games than the Pacers did all season long. And you have to look at the last 10 games. Indiana is 7-3 in their last 10. Milwaukee 3-7. Milwaukee's not playing good
Yikes.
basketball heading
They're
into the
limping.
playoffs. They've
Mm-hmm.
been under 500 since Doc Rivers took over. Doc Rivers has flamed out multiple times in NBA playoff series, mostly in second rounds, not first rounds, but still, it gives you a little bit of a window of hope that Indiana could figure out how to do it. I think if you look at their overall talent on paper, I don't think it's that far off. Obviously, Giannis is the best player in the series
Yes.
if he's fully healthy, but that's a question mark. And then who's the second best? Because Damian Lillard, probably on paper, you would say him, but I
In
don't think
wise.
he's necessarily has been that consistent this year. And that's where it makes it really interesting to kind of see what happens with him. But either way, it's going to be a very tough series. We'll get into that more. But let's talk about this game, because this was a game the Pacers desperately needed to win. And we talked about this on Saturday morning, how pivotal it was for them to get this victory and do it in convincing fashion. But I think you have to just go back and look at how this game started. It was Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam taking advantage of Atlanta's smaller front court. Bruno Fernando, DeAndre Hunter was their starting front court, and Turner and Siakam were the ones carrying the Pacers all the way to that huge lead. And so I think that by them kind of establishing their presence down low and even from outside, I mean, they were so good on both ends of the floor, and I really think it set the tone and got the Pacers off to the start they needed.
It really did. Those two feasted, but in specific, Miles Turner. Turner had 11 of the Pacers' first 15 points. He had 2 blocks in that span. He just looked ultra aggressive, and I just felt like there's always that we talk about a confident Miles Turner is a scary man, and
Mhm.
he had it going. And look, no starter played more than 25 minutes. So
Yeah.
when you see Turner have 31 and you see Siakam have 28, those guys were on pace to have unbelievable games because they didn't play the fourth quarter. I mean, Turner played 22 minutes in this game. So they were, I thought at one point Turner was on pace for a career high. And I think that if the game was closer, he probably does have a career high. I'm not sure exactly what Siakam's career high was, but he might have been able to have 40 himself. So
Yeah.
those two bigs, no doubt about it. It was a big loss for Atlanta not have a Kongwu out there and Clint Capella. And hey, that's not our problem. You go up against who you're scheduled against. And I just felt like when you made that trade for Pascal Siakam, you needed a guy that you knew you can count on. And a day like today, when you needed a big win, he showed up 13 of 18. Turner was 13 of 17. I think at one point, Turner was 13 of 14. It was just those guys just could not miss. And they really did set the tone for the Pacers today.
Yeah, they did. And Clint Capella was did not play in this game. He was questionable. He set out just for rest. Atlanta really had nothing to play for. So good opportunity for some of the young guys like Muhammad Gay, Matthews, those kind of guys to get there and get some minutes and maybe get Trae Young some time to get his legs fresh a little bit. DeJounte Murray played 31 in this game, but really they didn't seem like they were playing their best basketball. But if you look at the starting five, obviously very heavy dose of Siakam and Turner, but Aaron Nesmith, 3 for 3, was perfect from the field in the shots that he took. Andrew Nembhard, 4 of 5. He shot the ball really well, 2 of 3 from three. Tyrese Halliburton was 5 of 10 in this game, only took 10 shots, had 12 points, also had 13 assists. So if you just look at the efficiency of this team, they shot 65% as a team, Facci, and they shot
Unbelievable.
52.8% from three. So they were feeling really good. And I will say this from being in the building, this fan base was incredibly excited. You could feel it in the arena. They knew it was on the line and they were bringing the extra umph. And Miles Turner did a great job at the beginning of the game, greeting the crowd and really trying to amp them up and talked about the playoffs. And as soon as he said playoffs, that arena went nuts. And I think from that moment on, you just felt really good about it. So I just think, I know that it wasn't a pretty game in terms of what you want to see moving forward with this team on both sides of the basketball. But it was game 82. They gave the fans a lot to cheer about, and they won in convincing fashion, 157 to 115. And it was all led by really their starting unit setting that tone.
It really was. I mean, let's just break it down a little bit. 49 points by the Pacers in the first quarter. I believe that was a franchise best for first
For,
quarter.
for first quarter points, yes.
Yes, exactly. The 157. I mean, that tied a franchise best.
I
I,
wanted them to break it so bad. Kendall Brown
I
was so
wanted
close.
and I needed to ask you that because I wanted it so bad. And I mean, when typically if you're up a lot, your coach will say, "Hey, you know what? Dribble it out." But the Pacers were dribbling it out with like 48 seconds to go. They did it for the last two possessions. That hurt. They had
Mhm.
opportunities in the fourth quarter to be able to break it. Obviously, if any of the starters play, I mean, you might be looking at, 165, 170, something historic. But overall, I mean, you talked about it, 65% from the field. It was just like the Pacers could not miss. And I believe it was 86 points that they had at halftime. That matched a franchise best from earlier in the year. So it was just like you and I, we were joking last episode. I mean, hey, every time you play the Hawks, a franchise record, more of them came today. And I
Yeah.
loved it. I was waiting for this exact moment right now to be able to bring that up because if only you could play the Atlanta Hawks 12 times in a season. I mean, how about that? That would have been amazing. But yeah, this was like you needed a win. And I just felt that everybody was on the same page today, from players to fans, whatever it was. It was like you felt grossed out. The Pacers let up about 72 at halftime. They came to play. They only let up 43 in the second half. That to me was like that halftime adjustments that they never looked back.
Yeah, Rick was not happy, and I think the fact that they gave up that huge lead and let Atlanta to get back into it, and DeJounte Murray was like driving down the lane untouched,
Oh
dunking
yeah.
on people. Like I think that's what really just irritated Rick. I think he said it was like they were playing Rucker Park basketball in his post game press conference. So, you know what? Like I'm glad Rick is pushing the buttons. I think Greg Doyle actually wrote a very good article in the Star about what Rick Carlisle said post game, and he said that this is a team basically that Rick Carlisle knows if he pushes the right buttons, they can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals because they are on the opposite bracket of Boston. And while that'll be a really tough team to run into, they have what it takes to get that far if everything clicks right. So I
Yeah,
think that,
I agree.
Rick is doing what he's doing best. He's not being, he's being kind of a jerk a little bit, by how he's kind of giving that tone a little bit. Like, I don't want to hear any of this no nonsense stuff. Like, yeah, it's great we made the playoffs, but that's not our goal. We've made Eastern Conference Finals as an Indiana franchise, so our goal is to win deep in the playoffs. It's not just making it. We're not here for kumbaya stories. We're here for legit stuff. But you're right. It was one of those things where they did set records against the Hawks. I know Rooster was tweeting at us and joking. I didn't have any problem with us talking about it afterwards. I just didn't want to
I know. I
curse
get
it before it happened because we know how that usually works.
it. We do, but this even felt like a game that I couldn't mess up. Like I like
It's
to
the
believe
Hawks,
if
right?
I was in the stands, we still win. But hey, we'll never know. But I just feel
Thank
that
God you weren't.
yeah, that's true. And to be honest, everybody, there was a moment where if we were going to play the Knicks, how was I not going to go to a playoff
Oh
game
man, that was
in
fate,
my own
man.
backyard? I mean, the tickets would have been ridiculously expensive, but at the same point, it would have hurt even more to buy
Facci's
tickets
got
and then
money
to
on.
move.
Like, don't let him fool you over here, man. This man is living in New York right now.
Yeah, hey, it's expensive out here. But anyway, look, here's the thing. It's the Pacers got it done when you needed it. And Rick, he's right to be like that. The second you start patting your team on the back and be like, this is a big, big step for this franchise. Oh, wow. Like, that was our goal. That's when everybody gets full and they stop
Mm.
being hungry. And I think that it's like, I like the fact that like Tyrese is going to be playing in front of a home crowd, in the playoffs. It's against the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's like, it's great that that's an added incentive for him. I like the chippiness over here because it just they're not going to overlook anyone. They've always been ready to play the Bucks. And hey, you even got a little extra drama of Damian Lillard taking that All-Star MVP when a lot of people felt that it should have been Halliburton's. It's a little extra incentive added in there. So there's a lot of talking points, but I just feel that across the board, I don't think you really could have asked for a better Pacer performance. And actually, the margin of victory, winning 157 to 115, was their largest of the year
Mm.
when you needed it most. And I just felt across the board, everybody kind of got an opportunity in this game. Like, underrated thing and not a big talking point. Is that the last time James Johnson ever steps on the court and gets to play? I don't know, but I was rooting for him to be like, he had like a nice assist, in the game. But I was just like, hey, you know what? This is just a feel good story. Obi Toppin being able to play every game this year. He gets
Yeah.
put down for 82, but we know it's 83 that he played. That hurt ankle. Being able to just be out there, I think, was awesome. Now to be able to have about a week off of rest, huge for this team. But actually, I'm going to ask you the question. Is it too much rest for this team?
Well, I think it's going to be the same amount of rest for
It is.
everybody. So I think that it's fair to just kind of say, okay, you know what, both teams are going into this with a week's rest basically because they won't play until next Sunday. That time has not been determined yet. So we'll have to see what happens there. I'm assuming it'll be determined after the play-in games happen. So there's a better understanding of when those games are actually happen. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like a week long, it gives you time to prep, gives you time to get your bodies healthy. And I'm sure those guys will just be itching to play. But, a week off never hurt anybody in terms of just getting yourself ready and right. If there's any nicks and bruises, like we talked about Saturday, if Obi Toppin were to miss the game, at least it'd give him some time to recover. But now any ailing and, any lingering issues he had with that ankle, now he'll have time for that to heal and things like that. But yeah, I'm not too worried about that. But I will say this in this game, Flachi, question for you, going back to like stuff that actually happened in the game.
Yeah.
What were you more surprised by? A Doug McDermott dunk or a Doug McDermott long two?
And it's a good question. I can even throw in another one. TJ McConnell going for three made threes. I mean, that
No,
blew my
that's
mind too.
TJ McConnell is the GOAT right now. Like
Yeah.
he's an MVP status level at this point. So we
What
can't
he
we can't even breathe him and McDermott in the same air. Like he's a
No,
better shooter than
we
McDermott
can't.
right now.
I guess I'm gonna say the Doug McDermott dunk because I started being like, look, I'm a little bit tired, like but let me rub my eyes. Did I just see Doug McDermott throw one down? It was like in a span of like everything happened. You had McConnell just hitting all these threes, and it's like McDermott dunks it. I was like, this is a party right now. So I don't think we're ever gonna see another Doug McDermott dunk again. I think I'm gonna like plant my feet down on that. I think this is the last dunk of his career.
Wow. I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
that. Good grief.
I'm gonna say it. I just don't think he's gonna ever have that type of opportunity again. We don't see the long twos from him. The dunk.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna look back when his career is all said and done, and we're gonna say on April 14th, 2024, that man had his last dunk in the NBA.
Rooster, mark this down when you're listening to this and bring up the
Yep,
receipt whenever he dunks it in a couple weeks in the
we'll
playoffs.
see. Couple weeks, and
No,
things will be going great for us. I'll tell you that. If Doug McDermott's dunking in the playoffs, we got a lot to celebrate.
we could be up by 20 or down by 20. You never know. But I think honestly the 2 point shot, because he was literally a foot inside the 3 point line and he like kind of looked behind him. And I was like, what is happening here? Like, he was so surprised that he was like actually that close to the basket because
Yeah.
he's not used to shooting inside the arc. I mean, it's either threes or layups for him usually. So
Mhm.
thought it was funny. But overall, really, I thought Jalen Smith had some nice moments in this game too. Obi Toppin, I think, is the only pacer that shot, below 50% that actually took more than one or two
One
attempts.
shot.
So,
Yeah.
that kind of shows you how offensively this team was clicking. Jarris Walker got in there in the fourth quarter and kind of showcased some things. But,
Mhm.
overall, this game to me, it really wasn't about anything other than just taking care of business. And we don't really have any hot takeaways from this. It was great to see Miles really turn it on, Pascal turn it on, and can they do that in the playoffs? Can they kind of help lead this team? But it was kind of spearheaded by your three leaders today, including McConnell, who was leading the team in scoring at 1 point off the bench. So that's been the new norm. It's the reoccurring trend with TJ McConnell just doing what he does best. But I think he's shooting something like 55, 53, and 80 something, some like 87 with his splits over like the last handful of games. I was reading that in Greg Doyle's article. I'll find that, but I thought that was really interesting.
I mean, yeah, it's he's been amazing. In the month of April, he's shooting 60% from the field, averaging about 15 points per game. So it's just been great to see. I mean, 3 or 4 from three, like we talked about tonight. It's just like I I mean, McConnell's come so far as a 3 point shooter. To be able to put up 4 threes is one thing. To be able to make three of them is like that. That just shows, hey, he's developing that confidence in his shot. I think it's been awesome to see. Yeah, Jarris Walker, that you touched on. Hey, he had some good 3 pointers. I thought at one point he was going to be the guy that was going to break the franchise, scoring record for a game for a team. But overall, in terms of just some other stats, fun stuff out there, Pacers became the first team ever to score over 10,000 points in a season, 2,500 assists. It just shows that it's like this team offensively. I mean, it's been brilliant. I think last year might have been a franchise scoring record for them, and then they top it this year. I think that's been incredible. And then Tyrese Halliburton officially leading the NBA in assists, finishes the year leading in assists per game and total assists, I believe.
Yeah.
Despite missing a ton of games, played 69 games.
Yeah.
The sky is the limit for Halliburton and in these record books.
Yeah. You should definitely hope that helps Tyrese's case for all NBA. Number one, getting
I
the
think so.
team a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference, and number two, leading the league in assists per game while only playing 69, because he had some crazy stretches there where you're looking at like 20 back-to-back 20 assist
Oh
game with
yeah.
0 turnovers. Like, he was just phenomenal at certain points this year. But I do have that stat pulled up real quick.
Oh yeah.
McConnell is on a 57, 55, 87 heater entering the playoffs, and that's over the last 22 games.
That's a lot.
So that's pretty impressive from TJ McConnell. He's been playing lights out, and I think there's going to be some fun battles between him and Patrick Beverly. I, I,
Very well
I
could be.
we're gonna get some scrappiness out of those two guys. I'm excited for this playoff series. I think I'm gonna be annoyed with Bucks fans by the end of it. I'm probably already gonna be annoyed by Bucks fans by
Oh
the end
yeah.
of this week before the first game's even played. But I think that it's an exciting matchup. Obviously, the two franchises have had tons of stuff happen this year. Better lock your basketballs up because we
True.
got people stealing them left and right. And one other thing too, Tyrese Halliburton. I'm sure you remember this during All-Star Week when he made the rounds on all of his media trips, doing different podcasts. Everybody kept asking about the Bucks. Everybody kept
Mhm.
asking about it, and he said, "Well, I don't really think it's a rivalry until we beat them in the playoffs." Remember when he said that?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I
Got
mean,
his
here we
chance
are.
now, back in his hometown too.
That's what I'm saying. I think that adds just that extra fuel that Halliburton needs, and I think that it makes it even more exciting. But I do think that if the Pacers want to we're on that cusp of respect right now. If you can take down the Bucks, you will have everybody's attention. Everybody will be saying, look out for the Pacers. It might not be this year, but they're coming. They're putting something together. And I just feel that the Bucks, they should be worried. They should, because right now we obviously know Giannis is not 100%. And this is a team that, yeah, you could say, hey, you know what, the regular season is the regular season, but we'll be fine. But they're hoping they'll be fine. If the
Mhm.
Pacers can play, I think the Pacers are a better team since they've played the Bucks in those 5 games. So I'm excited about that, but only time will tell. I think that this week off is everything that the Bucks need. I think if it was less, then I think they would be a little bit more worried. But when you're talking about Bucks fans, I forgot just how irritated they got last time. I mean,
Mhm.
if someone on the Pacers even breathed, it was like Halliburton's never even made the playoffs before. Well, what do you got now? Because we're in the playoffs. So I
Yeah.
need to know what new stuff they're going to come throwing our way, and I think we're going to find out pretty soon. This week, it's on.
Yeah, especially if Indiana somehow wins this series and Giannis isn't playing all the games. You're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
hear, well, they couldn't beat us without Giannis, or with Giannis, blah 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 blah. So just there's always gonna be something, no matter what. I'm not gonna worry about getting involved in that. I'll let the fans do that. You guys do a great job going on the keyboard wars on social media for me, but I just don't have time for that energy or that, letting that bother me because if that stuff creeps into you, man, it gets annoying. And I will say this, like as I was watching the Cavs game, man, I was like legit getting annoyed on the couch, and I really done a good job of kind of decompressing from all that and not usually caring about wins or losses. But like in a game that was that big, just the fact that they just were so got off to such a slow start in the first quarter against the Cavs, I was just like livid in the way they closed it out in the fourth. I was like, man, this is how I'm going to be in the playoffs again. And I've actually enjoyed not having to have that stress in my life, but I'm really glad it's back. And I'm glad that the Pacers are making this team relevant again. I think they're heading in a great direction. They've got Tyrese Halliburton, who still does not look like himself 100% yet. Like even though the windmill dunk was nice and things like that, he's gotten better as a shooter, but still the step back three just hasn't been there. It really hasn't. And I'm kind of hoping that he goes away from it a little bit more in the playoffs and doesn't rely on it too much because I feel like they can get a better look than that. And I think he has to understand that, okay, I can be the guy, but maybe me being the guy is not the best shot for our team. And when you have George Niang guarding Pascal Siakam, maybe you should give him the ball instead of you trying to cook when you don't really have anything going. And I think that could be the same thing. And I think while we'll talk about more of the Buck stuff moving forward, just like finding the right mismatch when it's there. Obviously, Tyrese has had great success against the Bucks and their defensive coverage. They will change all of that. It will be a totally different game plan. He'll probably get harassed the entire game by Patrick Beverly. Just pray and cross your fingers that he doesn't injure him at some point because that's just what Pat Bev does. So, there's just a lot of things you have to look out here for. But I'm just saying, this Pacers team, it's been a really, really fun season. Love everything that we got to see this year from the ups and the downs. And sitting at 6 feels pretty good, Foch.
It really does. And I think coming into the year, I'll admit it. I mean, I didn't have the Pacers as top 6 seed. I think I had them at 7 or 8, but it was like, hey, playing, you know what? They did amazing stuff this year. And I know, yes, there's games that slipped away, and the Pacers could have had a very special season where they did finish at second or third in the East. But I'm really happy with what I saw because I saw a team that is not quite all there. And if this is what it looks like when they're not all there, what could they be when they put it all together? But the absence from the playoffs, I mean, it has made my heart grow fonder. I mean, I need playoff basketball in the Pacers again because there's nothing quite like it. And the last couple of years, just sitting on the sidelines, watching other fan bases, specifically the Kings, make it back to the playoffs, and their fans just going bananas. I just want this Pacers crowd to be, a rowdy crowd that can make a difference. And I think that I just can't wait to see this team back in the playoffs. Whatever's going to happen, hey, I'm behind them. It feels great to be back. It feels incredible to dodge the play-in. There was a moment where if the Pacers fell to the play-in, while it shouldn't overtake the whole season, it would have been a tough pill to swallow. And I'm just so happy to have this time off, be able to get our heads straight and take on a team that we are very familiar with. There's a big difference between playing the Bucks 5 times and playing the Knicks 3, and for 1 or 2 of them, they really weren't healthy at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think people that were wanting the Knicks do not realize how good Jalen Brunson has been. Like Jalen Brunson, I think has been probably like the second best player
He's
in
been
the league.
unbelievable.
After the All Star break, like he's been on a tear, and without Julius Randle, it just means the ball's in his hands more, which can be problematic for other teams because he's that good. You got Mitchell Robbins coming back. OG Anunoby never played against the Pacers either, and I think his defense would clearly mess things up. Josh Hart's a really good player as well. So like, I'm not gonna sit over here and just like constantly praise the Knicks, but I respect the Knicks for what they did this season. A great year from them, 50 wins. Weren't afraid of the 2 seed. They went out and got it. They could have easily lost that game to Chicago State at 3, said, let's play Indiana. But they said, you know what? Let's get the 2 seed. Let's take on Philly. Let's take on Miami. Whoever we're going to play, we have confidence in who we are as a team. They made a great trade at the trade deadline, getting Bogdanovich and Burks. I mean, they just did a lot of small things here to make some good moves around the edges and make their team really deep. So, I think anybody that looks at the Knicks on paper, they're as good as their record says it is. And I think one thing too with Pacer fans, like you would have had the Wally Zerbiak crap between him and Tyrese that would have been thrown back out there again. And then we've seen where a lot of people have said Jalen Brunson's better than Tyrese Halliburton. And
A lot of people.
maybe post injury, I mean, pre injury, I think it's clearly Halliburton was the better player pre injury. But post
Definitely.
injury, it's been Jalen Brunson's world, really. I mean, he's been unbelievable. So
There's no doubt
there
about
is
it.
a really good case that Jalen Brunson just cooks in that series, and Tyrese Halliburton probably does get pushed down the line a little bit in terms of like the pecking order. So it still could happen without that series happening against each other, but at least you don't have to see that head-to-head matchup. So I think getting the Bucks, it's one of those things when you're looking at both franchises, it's a closer flight. You know this team a little bit more, like you said, 5 games versus 3 is a big difference, and you've won 4 out of the 5. You feel confident against that team, and you faced them when they were at full strength, aside from the Middleton minutes restriction. So that to me, everything's kind of pointing in a direction of okay, we should feel good about this.
I think confidence goes a long way, and I just think that this locker room, having beaten the Bucks 4 times, they could believe it. It's not just that they're hopeful or anything like that. They could believe it because they've done it. And I know that yes, Siakam wasn't on the team, but I think that's great. That hey, we won those games without him. I think we're even better with him. So I'm just so excited for this. It's going to be a full week from now, so I know you're probably listening to this on Monday, so maybe a little bit less, but playoff basketball in Indiana is officially back. And for a lot of our listeners, I don't think they've ever heard us talk about playoff basketball on this show.
Right.
And hey, I welcome you all to that because this is a very exciting time. We're going to have a blast with this. Let's celebrate some wins together.
Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to have a ton of content for you this week. But before we sign off here, Facci, I want to let everybody know that we do have new merchandise
Oh, yeah.
available on TeePublic. If you guys just go to tpublic.com, you can type in Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast. You should be able to find our stuff there. If not, I have a link in the description of this podcast as well. You guys can easily just click there, find it, and it will just default to t-shirts. But we also have hoodies, we have crew necks, we have tank tops on some of the options. There's wall art, phone cases, all different kinds of stuff that TeePublic
Everything.
does provide there. So make sure you guys check that out. It is a lot easier for you guys to just order on there. It'll get shipped to you within the next week instead of me and Facci having to try to ship all that stuff out to you. I know it could be a little bit
Big job
problematic.
last year.
Yeah, it
Big
was a
job.
lot of work on our end, but this is a much simpler setup. It's through a website that does it for us. Jolie Carroll made all of the graphic design for us.
Great
So
designs.
Jolie did a great job. Want to give her a shout out because I mean, the fact that she did that for us, a friend of mine, did not charge us anything either. So that is what you call a dear and near and dear friend. So thank her for that. But just a really exciting time to be a Pacer fan. And if you want to get some new Setting the Pace merch, I highly recommend you guys check that out. And there's a total, like, I think one thing to check out too with the t-shirts, with the sweatshirts and the hoodies and things like that, you can kind of browse through what kind of style you want to. If you want a thicker shirt, you want more of a athletic shirt. If you want more of a lighter hoodie, a zip up hoodie, it'll change things. And I will say on the zip up hoodies, the logo will go on the back, not the front. So that'll be the only thing that's different. But if you have any questions, shoot me an email, alexgoldenmba@gmail.com. I'll try to help you guys out with any questions you might have. But anything else, Foch?
Also, I just want to say we got about 15 plus colors to choose from. So a
Yeah.
lot of different options. In the past, we did not. It was this is the color. It's
Yeah.
either black or it was blue, depending on which shirt you got in the past. So a lot of different options. My wife was able to get, I think, like a softer shirt. I was able to just go with the standard, with totally different colors. I think she got like tie dye or something. So we
Oh,
got a
really? She
little
went
bit
tie
of
dye?
something. Yep, she got the tie dye. I went with like a cool blue color. So there's three different logo options up there as well. So you got some options compared to the past. So really exciting time. Playoff basketball is here, and also as it relates to ordering some of that merchandise, it's actually cheaper now than it will be a few days from now because the website is running some specials. So
Mm.
exciting stuff. But yeah, I mean, nothing to complain about today other than not breaking the franchise scoring record. Hey, if that's the biggest complaint, today was a great day.
Today was a great day, and it's a great day to be a Pacer fan. Great day to be outside in Indianapolis. I'm sure it was a great day in New York
It
weather-wise.
was.
So it's been an awesome weekend. I went to Rick's Boatyard on Saturday, got some pork chops with a baked potato and some
Hey,
asparagus. And whenever you're at Rick's, it really does feel like you're on spring break. So it's one of those weird hidden gems in Indianapolis, and you're kind of shocked like you're in Indianapolis when you're there because it almost feels like you shouldn't be there. So always enjoy getting away doing that and getting some good food in me. But with that being said, Pacer fans, be excited, be on the lookout. Facci and I will be back. We're gonna do a playoff mailbag podcast. We're gonna do a part one, part two this week. So if you guys have any questions you want to hit us up with, please send those to us on Twitter. We will find them. We will, put them all together and make it really simple. So we're gonna do a postseason mailbag podcast as we're getting excited for the playoffs. We'll also do a preview, a full preview of Bucks Pacers. That'll probably be coming out in the next couple of days. And then to close it all out on Friday, we'll have a guest on to kind of preview the series as well, get their thoughts aside from ours. So a lot to be excited about. But Facci, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find us at on social media.
absolutely. So you can find us on Twitter at PacersPod, STP. You can find Alex on Twitter at Alex Golden NBA. I can be found on Twitter at _FACCI. You can find us on Instagram at PacersPod, STP. You can find us on Facebook, Setting the Pace. You can find us on TikTok, Setting the Pace. And Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
Ladies and gentlemen, go to youtube.com/setting the pace, a Pacers podcast where you can find all of our video content. Make sure you guys subscribe to that channel as everything that we talked about playoff wise will be up on the YouTube channel. So you don't want to miss a beat there. And please leave us any comments in the comment section to keep that conversation going. Maybe something we missed, maybe something we said that you agree with, disagree with. Let us know. Let's have a nice conversation about it without being rude, without name calling, because we want to be respectful to everybody in the comment section. But with that being said, Facci, if you're excited, the Pacers have clinched a spot in the playoffs again, and they get a chance to smear the deer, then hit me with those three words.
Let's go, Pacers.